Everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, Father Charles. My name is, once again, Father Paul Vu, a Jesuit. I've been here at Loyola Marymount University for the past 9 years. And so it's a great honor and a privilege to be here with you tonight to share with you some of my informations that, hopefully that you'll be able to find helpful. Whenever I begin a homily or presentation, I often, like to ease into it by, sharing a funny story or a joke. And so let us begin. So there are 3 things that even God does not know about the church. Number 1, how many congregations of religious women are there? Number 2, how much money do the Franciscans have stashed away? Number 3, what do the Jesuits really think and what are they going to do next? So, as we all know, we are challenged with major disruptions in our day-to-day routines during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I believe that this is our 30th week of not having students here at LMU. It is very easy to feel overwhelmed or stressed as we navigate all of the changes simultaneously. It is during these times when self-care, in my mind, is crucial to good health. Therefore, today, with your permission, we will talk about 3 areas: body, spirit, and mind. I will be focusing more on the spirit and mind. In terms of body, prior to the pandemic, for myself, I rarely work under 40 or 45 hours a week, typically about 50 to 60 hours while being under much emotional and physical stress. For the last several months since working from home in the Jesuit community here on campus, I've reminded myself that my body is an utmost important tool, my profession. Therefore, it needs to be well taken care of. So number 1, I believe that let us be intentional. In addition to your regular exercise, it might be helpful to be creative, active, and keep things simple and fun. Instead of waiting to the New Year's to make a resolution, I've decided, during the past few months to walk more, typically 5 to 7 miles a day on campus. I've been trying to eat healthier and try to recalibrate and have a more balanced life. And I can tell you that now I'm feeling much more energetic, more than ever. So number 1, be intentional. Number 2, learn something new. For example, if you find yourself with more time on your hands, think about activities that you have always wanted to do. Perhaps go hiking or read books, that you have always wanted to read, podcasts that you want to listen to, and etc. Just do them. Number 3, stay connected. I think it's really easy to feel isolated and lonely and stuck inside, and you're not able to get together with friends and families or participate in social events like you used to. It's really important, to have a sense of togetherness and community. It's very crucial more than ever right now. And virtual gatherings, while it may not be the same as physical gathering, but still, it can be very uplifting. Number 4, be kind to yourself. Do not put too much pressure on yourself of being the most perfect spouse, the most perfect parent, colleagues, or friend. We are in a time of change and worry, a time of uncertainties. So therefore, try not to add stress by creating unattainable expectations or burning yourself out. Number 5, the importance of humor. Use humor as a way to calm yourself or mitigate tensions. Well, here's a fun example, a funny story here. So after finishing a wonderful Chinese dinner, a wife and her husband cracked open their fortune cookies. Hers read, Confucius said, "Be quiet for a little while." His read, "Talk while you have a chance." So indeed, laughter is the key to happiness and the wine for the soul, especially during the pandemic. So let's move over to the spirit aspect. Why the pandemic has been very challenging in so many ways for me and for all of you. Certainly, I have taken this opportunity to grow in mind and spirit. So my recommendation, number one, perhaps, read the lives of the saints. That's what I've been doing pretty much every day. And there are several books, on Amazon's or on the internet that you can read. My recommendation is Life of the Saints by Father Alvin Butler. A really good one. Another good one is My Life with the Saints by Father James Martin, a fellow Jesuit brother of mine. And the third one, it's called 365 Saints, Your Daily Guide to the Wisdom and Wonder of Their Lives by Wadeen Koenig Bricker. So I will put these on the chat room right now. Okay, so once again, read the lives of the saints. That would be very helpful. Number two, practice love. So during the pandemic, all of us, in my mind, can find ways to serve, focusing particularly on those who are especially vulnerable due to their age, race, class, or legal status. If we are to practice love, then we must strive to be the best of our ability, to develop systems and enact policies that advance the common good and to promote the full dignity and participation of all. I think this is a time where our country is going through a lot of crisis. If any, therefore, I think this is the most important time to practice love to our families, our neighbors, and those who we may encounter out the streets. Another advice or suggestions in terms of how to deal with enhance your spirits during this time is pretty simple: trust in God. So this past March, when the pandemic began to spread worldwide, Pope Francis said this moment in history is, quote unquote, a time to choose what matters in life and what passes away, a time to separate what is necessary from what is not. It is a time to get our lives back on track with regard to you, Lord, and to others. Pope Francis continues by saying, let us invite Jesus into the boats of our lives and hand over our fears to him so that he can conquer them, because this is God's strength, turning to the good everything that happens to us, even the bad things. He brings serenity into our storms, because with God, life never dies. So trust in God and give him permission to be a part of your life, to be a part of your joy, your sorrow, and the struggles that you may be dealing with right now. The last thing under the spirit, I'm going to share a screen with you. If I can have permission from the host to share a screen, that would be great. The host, would it be possible for me to share the screen, please? Okay. Once I get the permission from the host, then I would just, I would just read right now. So the examen. The examen is a prayer that some of you may have heard of. The examen is a prayer for awareness taught by the founder of the Jesuits, St. Ignatius of Loyola, which assists us to notice God's presence in our daily lives. So traditionally it has 5 steps, but years ago, I've made an acronym so that the students, here could remember. So when you start to do an exam, just remember the word START, S-T-A-R-T. Thank you. Here we go. So start. So place yourself, silence. Silence yourself in the attention to God's presence and love for you. Followed by thankfulness. Take a moment to be grateful for today, as it is a gift from God. And after you being thankful for the gifts that has been given to you during the day, and next come awareness. Take a moment to ask for a deeper awareness to know how God has been calling you and how have you responded to God's call. The next step, review, is very important. So just take a moment to review your day and reflect on the feelings you have experienced during the day. So just imagine yourself watching a quick movie clips of your day starting in the morning. What did you do? Did you have breakfast? Who did you encounter? Any tensions that you may have experienced? So what has challenged you today? Where did you feel true joy today? Did you notice God's presence throughout the day? So once again, just take a mental review of everything that has happened during the day. And finally, tomorrow. Trust that God will be tomorrow will be a better day with God's guidance and love. Perhaps you can ask yourself simply, what can I do to make tomorrow a better day than today? You can either, once again, use the word acronym to start, or if you don't have time, the 3 questions that that you could ask yourself. What am I most grateful for today? Perhaps list them out. Or what brings me the most joy today? Followed by, what is the thing that I am least grateful for? What was I upset about? Perhaps, not having much time with my family, or that, having arguments with colleagues or family members. And finally, the 3rd question is, what can I do to make tomorrow a better day? Perhaps, I'm going to be more patient with myself. Perhaps I'm going to spend 5 more minutes with my son or daughter. Or perhaps I'm going to commit myself to share with my family members, telling them how much I love them and appreciate them. So typically for Jesuits, we are asked to do the exam twice a day, during noontime as well as before we go to sleep. But typically, the reality is, due to my schedule, I often skip the lunch and just do this right before I go to bed. Okay, so I'm going to be sending this to Father Charles, and for whoever would like this, you can certainly ask Father Charles for it. Now we're going to cover the mind. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this. Our mind is a very powerful tool which can impact negatively or positively, depends on how we perceive things. Okay, I'm sorry, can I share the screen again? Oops. Okay, so here's a poem, and some of you may have read this poem before. So I'm going to read it once, and we can come back to it later. Worst Day Ever. So this poem was created by Janie Gorkin, I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, when she was only 15 or 16 years old. I believe that she's from the East Coast. Worst day ever. Today was the absolute worst day ever. And don't try to convince me that there's something good in every day. Because when you take a closer look, this world is a pretty evil place. Even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. And it's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because true happiness can be attained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that the reality creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control. And you will never in a million years hear me say, today was a very good day. So certainly I'm pretty sure that many of us, including myself, have found ourselves, during the pandemic to have a day like this. In our mind, the worst day ever. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge, the struggles that we may have, but it's even more important for us to how do we react to it. One of my favorite quotes that I use for myself, as well as with the students of concerns that would come to my office, or even now through Zoom. The quote is by Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher. The event is important, but the reaction to the event is equally important. Once again, the event is important. The reaction to the event is equally important. Okay. So if you don't mind, we can come back to this poem a little bit later. So right now, I'm just going to share a reflection. And I think that this also can help us have a better understanding in terms of trying to find the silver linings during the pandemic. And hopefully it will be applicable to our lives as well. So there once was a devout religious man who was asleep in his small cabin when God appeared to him one night. God told the man that he had work for him to do and show him a large rock in front of his cabin. The man was to push against the rock with all of his might. For years, the man worked from sunrise to sunset every day. His shoulders set squarely against the cold, massive surface of the unmoving rock, pushing with all of his strength. Every night, the man returned to his cabins, sore and worn out, feeling that his whole day had been spent in vain, and yet he never questioned the Lord. Noticing that the man was beginning to show signs of discouragement, the devil began to plant the seeds of doubt in the man's mind by saying, "You have been pushing against that rock for a long time, and it hasn't budged. You're never going to move it. What are you trying to prove? A loving God of yours would never do that to you." In his hardship, these thoughts discouraged and disheartened the man even more. What is the purpose of doing this, he wondered. I would just put in my time, giving just a minimum of efforts, and that will be good enough. Finally, in his lowest moments and feeling abandoned by God, he questioned God. I am so confused and angry, he said. I have worked long and hard in your service, putting all my strength to do that which you have asked. Yet after all this time, I have not even moved that rock a quarter of an inch. Why am I failing and wasting my time? What do you want of me, God? God looked at the man with compassion and said, my son, long ago when I asked you to serve me and you accepted, I told you that your task was to push against that rock with all of your strength, which you have done. Never once did I mention to you that I expected you to move it. Your task was to push it. And now you come to me, your strength spent, thinking that you have failed. But look at yourself, my son. Your arms are strong and muscled. Your back and your legs have become mighty and hard. Yet you haven't moved the rock. But your calling was to persevere, to push and to exercise your faith, and to trust in my wisdom. This you have done. I, my son, will now move the rock. For me, this is a very poignant and a very simple and yet very powerful story, as it reminds us that faith is a process with many ups and downs. In your journey and in my journey through the maze of life, many doubts, personal doubts, problems, and crises occur. However, only through these difficulties will our faith mature and grow. And while the COVID-19 has disrupted and impacted our lives physically, emotionally, and financially, perhaps we can pause and acknowledge some of its silver linings. It's hard to believe there are good things that may come from the COVID-19 pandemic. However, if we were to look closely, they're there. For example, the skies above our polluted cities are blue again. Before the fires in California. Our relentless consumer consumption has grown to a halt. Perhaps we are spending more time with family and community members. We have an unexpected window now to deal with climate change. Another silver lining may be the destructive impact of income inequality and disparities in healthcare is now plainly visible. And now we have an opportunity to focus on the common good and build a more humane society. Certainly, some may say that I'm being naive and optimistic in finding these silver linings and thinking that we still can make a difference during these most challenging times. However, I rather live with a sense of hope that all of us here have the desire to be agents of change rather than to be defeated by hopelessness and despair. I hope that all of you, including myself here, will continue to persevere and to truly be inculcated with the notion that optimism is one of our most important tools for making a better future. Because unless we believe that the future can be better, we will most unlikely step up and take responsibility for making it so. And perhaps the recent events in our country and the world are encouraging many of us to listen, to be more empathic and kind to others within our family, parish, and community. And most important, to sit in humility and rise in responsibility. After all, without change, there can be no breakthroughs. And without breakthroughs, there can be no future. So Lord, give us a heavenly perspective on this life, especially during these most challenging times. Help us not to be paralyzed by the turmoil and the brokenness of this world, but to constantly turn our gaze towards you for guidance and hope. Help us to embrace our current reality and to see with clear eyes both the hardships and blessings of our lives. Whenever we are tempted to despair over hardships, the never-ending hurts and the pains that we seem to be inflicting on one another, please remind us that you will never let us go through troubles without giving us a measure of your goodness, grace, peace, and love. Give all of us a right perspective on the life we have. That is a gift from you. As perpetual students of life, may we all continue to learn from our past and fearlessly pursue insight for a better today and tomorrow. May we always feed our mind with hope, with courage to speak the truth, with realistic optimism, with unending possibilities, and with understanding and compassionate love. And so right now, I'm going to share the screen again. So let's revisit the poem. The first time I read it, it sounds pretty pessimistic, is that right? But as I mentioned, our mind is a very important tool. So let's do this, but reverse. And I'm pretty sure that you can sense a difference here. Today was a very good day, and you would never in a million years hear me say, it's all beyond my control. My attitude creates the reality. I am sure you can agree that it's not true that good exists only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be attained because it is all in the mind and heart. And it is not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while, even if this world is a pretty evil place. Because when you take a closer look, there is something good in every day. And don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever. Amen.